Hey everybody, welcome back to the GOAT Film Reviews Show with another new episode. We're back, baby, with the main show, the main news show that I use just to kind of get things out and about here, a way to interact with you on today's movie news, the things that interest me, and let me know if there's things that interest you going on in the news. We'll include them on the next episode. It has been a long time since I've been here to do this show. I've done a number of first reactions to films that I've had out. I've done movie hauls, I've done unboxings, I've done all sorts of different stuff with the channel, just trying some different things out. This, of course, is a companion show to GOATFilmReviews.com, my main website, which you can check out at GOATFilmReviews.com. And basically, I started this show during the pandemic last year as a way to kind of just experiment more with the YouTube formula, the video formula. These videos can get embedded onto the site, so that kind of thing happened. And also just, I was working on Kyle and Nick on film at the time, but we weren't doing as much content because of the pandemic, because we need to have both of us in studio to really take part in that kind of stuff. So it has been a while since I actually partook in much stuff at all when it came to it. I did like 8 episodes of the show. I really enjoyed doing it, but then I just found myself kind of falling behind and struggling. There was a lot of stuff personally. I think my mental well-being was just not also in a great place. As you know, one of the ways I detox if my stress levels is to spend time at the cinema, and I couldn't do that all last year. And I know there's so many more important things going on, but that did affect me. And I think just like not being able to have my out, my ability to just kind of relax in a quiet area, it does soothe me a lot to go to the movies, and I just wasn't doing that very much. And yeah, for a number of other like things going on in my personal life, there was just some stuff that I wanted to spend time on, and I just got so darn busy with everything else going on. I bought a house in the last year. I'm sure I've mentioned this, but that was a lot of work. Lots of changes going on outside, but suffice it to say, the show is back. We've been gone a while. Basically, I'm going to try and continue evolving this YouTube channel, and what helps me out a lot is those subscribers that are out there. So click that subscribe button down below, like this video, let me know your thoughts on the show and what we should cover next time. It does really help. I know people think, oh, my comment is meaningless, and sometimes YouTube is a cesspool of horrible comments, but there are good people, and I'm assuming if you're watching the show that you're one of those good people, because I feel like I'm one of those good people. So let me know what you want to see for the future of the channel as well. This is a show that's meant to help you and help me at the same time. We'll be continuing to focus on how to make the show better, getting a better structure, and also just I had so much focus on Kyle and Nick on film and GOAT Film Reviews online, which I was falling behind on. But we are back. We are officially back and going, and hopefully I didn't bore you with my explanation about my personal life, but I do want to bring some of my personality and personal life to the show. There's a lot of people you could be watching on YouTube, and the choice of watching this show and taking time out with me means that you must at least want to know that I'm not a robot. And that's kind of cool, I think. So, anywho, let's just get started right now. We got our main story today. This is, of course, from Screen Rant. Malignant is getting a sequel? Maybe not 100% a sequel, but the film seemed to have a successful cultural relevance during its hybrid release in theaters and HBO Max, especially considering the concern towards its quality in the days leading up to the release. And let me posit that. In the days leading up to Malignant's release, I, as a great James Wan fan, was incredibly, incredibly nervous about how this was going to go. Suffice it to say, there was no review score for it. The film did not have a Friday night opening. It was dropping on HBO Max like 2 in the morning, what have you, but it did not have a Friday night opening. It did not have a review embargo that was lifted. This movie was just silence all across the way. I'm a huge fan of James Wan. I've at least enjoyed everything he's made as a director. And I've really, really liked or loved most of his work. But this had me incredibly nervous. So I was like thinking this movie was just going to be terrible. And a lot of the early like tweets that had come out from press screenings, because they can tweet even if they can't put a review out yet. All those things kind of had to do with like, this movie is wild, it's crazy, but that never really outlined if it was crazy good or crazy bad. And so there was a lot of stuff kind of questioning about that. Well, Annabelle Wallis, who played Madison Mitchell, the lead of the film, said, let me just read the quote here, "There's plenty of ideas swirling around. We were very, very flattered by the reception, and I think taken aback by the reception. So yeah, there's lots of conversations happening, and she was referring, of course, to the question of will we see a return to the Malignant series. Just to be fair, I'm going to try my best not to hit spoilers here, but if you haven't seen the film, I might tiptoe around them a little bit. It's tough for me because a lot of people talked about spoilers, but I felt like I could kind of guess where the movie was going from like moment one. So Wan's films kind of have a tendency to go towards the franchise setting. So that's the plan or not. Like, he does have a tendency to create interesting concepts that lend themselves to expansion. Of course, we talk about Saw, which now has 9 films, and he only really heavily worked on directing one. Worked on writing on like 2 or 3 of them, and then has produced the rest. But 9 films here. Dead Silence didn't have a sequel. Death Sentence didn't have a sequel, but it was based on the idea kernel of a sequel to Death Wish. So it's kind of like a cousin idea or a sister movie to that one. Insidious has 4 films with a 5th one on the way. He directed 2 of those. The Conjuring has an entire universe that I think, he directed 2 of them, but there's 3 Conjurings, 3 Annabelles, there's a Nun, a Curse of La Llorona. So I think is there 8? 8 right now films in the Conjuring universe? That's quite a bit for the fact that it's an 8-year-old movie. He also directed sequels and interconnected universe films with Furious 7 and Aquaman. So Malignant doesn't seem completely out of the possibility for getting a sequel. It seems entirely possible. Everything he's made has continued in some way except for Death Sentence and Dead Silence. There's almost no way to do a sequel that doesn't involve Wallace. Annabelle Wallace is very integral to the film. I'm not sure how you would make a film that doesn't include her. And again, trying to stay spoiler free here, it just doesn't, she is as important to Jason, or she's as important as a villain would be to appearing in a follow-up. Let's look at this comparison to, let's say Malignant was going to become a major franchise like a Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. What is most important to a new Friday the 13th film is Jason. What is most important to a new Nightmare film? Freddy. Most important to a new Halloween film? Michael. These bad guys, if you will, are the most important returning element to these franchises. In the case of Malignant, you almost, because of the connection between Annabelle Wallace's character Madison and our villain Gabriel, is so important that you couldn't do a sequel, at least I don't think, without having some connection there. You almost need to have that. In that case, it's a little bit closer to like Chucky and Andy Barclay. It would be really tough to separate that dynamic. Or, back to like Michael Myers and Halloween, Laurie Strode is very important to it, at least in the original continuity where she's like related to Michael. Like, her and Michael need to be kind of synonymous at that point, and when you lose her there, you have to kind of scramble to figure out who do we replace Laurie Strode with. It's less of a thing in the new movies because there's really no actual like connection between the characters that's important. But Malignant 2 would need to have Annabelle Wallace and Gabriel. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't have that. She's just more entwined than that. That all being said, there's a lot more to explore in a follow-up because there's little dangling bits of development scattered throughout the film. I think about the tone itself is very interesting, and I'd like to see that happen. It's tricky from a tonal perspective if he doesn't direct it to. If James Wan doesn't return to do Malignant 2, I don't know of a director that I immediately think I could pop that guy right in there, because it's just a different kind of movie. You need to have someone that has those sensibilities. And it's not like, like Saw. I mean, there was a specific way that each film kind of had to stick within that world. You could maybe have someone kind of just copy and paste, but like I look at Conjuring 3, which came out this year. That movie survives because of the central performances, not because of the direction. The directing on The Conjuring 3 was not all that great. It was fine, but it wasn't exemplary, which is what we like. You notice that James Wan's not directing the third Conjuring film, and I don't want to be thinking about about Malignant 2 and going, oh, I really wish James Wan was directing this. You would need to find someone else who could do it. I don't know if I could think of anyone. Where would you all go with a Malignant follow-up? That's, I guess, the question at the end of this year is, what would you do as a follow-up to Malignant? my thoughts, personally, just me jumping around, and again, we're going to get into some minor spoilers here, but I would take it back to the hospital. The hospital is pictured early on in the film in the opening. There's certain flashes back to the hospital as the film goes on, but I would take it to the hospital because I feel like I would take it to the hospital because if you did that, you could almost kind of take the bonkers ideas that are at play with this movie and mix and intermingle them with kind of a haunted house setting. And I don't mean that the hospital has to be haunted, but this creepy hospital that has a lot of history, that could add a lot of mythology to what's going on. Go back to the area that seems in tune, kind of meld that with maybe even like a slasher set in a hospital. Like we think about movies like X-Ray, Visiting Hours, that are set in a hospital setting. You could maybe do something like that, have a throwback to like Nightmare on Elm Street Dream Warriors or Bad Dreams. There's a lot you could do with the hospital setting, and I feel like taking our characters there for answers, for more information, could take and add something new to that. So I would swap it out and kind of just focus on like a 70s Giallo-esque. Not that Malignant is Giallo, but it's inspired by a lot of Giallo. I would say a Giallo-esque haunted house slasher film set in a hospital, and take the elements we have from the first movie and carry them over there. That's just me. What do you want to see from Malignant 2? That's what's important, right? The film did pretty well considering it had an HBO release and a theater release, so this isn't entirely surprising, but what would you do with a sequel if you were given the opportunity to? And what would you need to pique your interest in a sequel? Is it the return of James Wan? Is it the return of Annabelle Wallis? Is it the return of any other people in the movie? What do you need to see in order to make you want to check in for Malignant 2? Let me know down in the comment section below. That part's really interesting to me. So let me know about that. Let's move on to our next story. So up next, little story number one is going to be Colin Farrell is set to play the Penguin once again in a Batman spin-off for HBO Max. Now, we don't know a ton about this right now, so I'll give you the information that we do have. Variety reported this originally, as far as I was aware. And this was reported back in September, but it was kind of... We knew there was going to be a Penguin thing on HBO Max. We didn't know if there was any Colin Farrell connection. We didn't know, could this thing have been maybe like an animated spin-off? Was it connected to the Batman movie that's coming out? There was a lot of things that were questions, assumed because of his casting, but we couldn't make much out of that. So, this reported back in September. Farrell was not officially attached to the project at that time. He will be playing the villain in the series he will star in it and executive produce for HBO Max. Matt Reeves, director of the Batman, will be producing alongside Dylan Clark and the aforementioned Farrell. And Lauren LaFranc will be one of the writers. I don't know if she's going to be a head writer or just a writer on the show. There's another spin-off already been announced for the Gotham Pd, which is not the Gotham show that was on Fox. This is a Gotham Pd show connected to the Batman film that's coming out. The Batman's currently set to release March 4th, 2022. I don't see that changing unless things with the Omicron variant get a little more crazy. But I think right now we're set with March 4th. I think that's happening. So that's kind of what we're playing at here. And initially I was thinking, like, is Colin Farrell going to do TV? Because I was struggling to think of what he had done that was TV related in his past. Would that be something he would do? And then the idea came to me that, yeah, he was in True Detective. He was in season 2, that season no one really talks about. He was in True Detective. So he's done television work before. And I think, I'm curious, because we don't know enough about his character. I've been under the belief, and I think that's been supported by people talking about it, that he's not a big player in the movie. That in the movie he's going to have very little screen time, and maybe even just the opening scene, maybe just one of the action set pieces, and then we won't see him again. I don't know for certain what his role is going to be, but we know that the Riddler is pretty much the main villain, and I think, if I would guess, I would say Colin Farrell's Penguin is going to be like the Scarecrow from the Batman Begins trilogy, in that he's going to appear in all 3 films, and maybe have a big role in one of them, but I don't think he's going to be like the main. He's going to be more of a connective tissue between all 3 films. That's just my guess. But hearing he's going to star in a Penguin series, I am asking myself, who wants a Penguin series? Not that I don't think it's a good idea, but it's an odd idea. And we won't know until we see his performance in the finished film, The Batman, if that feels like it would work. But Colin Farrell he's delicious. He's a wonderful performer. I think he sometimes has a tendency of picking projects that aren't good, but he's always good in projects. And he's able to do a lot of things that people don't think he's capable of. When I heard he was going to be in the Harry Potter prequel, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, I thought, really? But he surprised me in that film. When I heard he was going to be playing the Jerry Dandridge character in a Fright Night remake, I was like, really? But he surprised me in that film. When I heard he was going to be make-upped up to do Horrible Bosses, I thought that was a bad idea. And I watched the movie, and Horrible Bosses is a brilliant comedy, and he's very funny in the movie. He has consistently surprised me by what he's capable of doing, and I don't know why I ever think he can't do something. I think I've been swayed now to believing that, no, I'm the one who's wrong for thinking he's incapable, because he's really, really good. Even occasionally, like, he picks a project that isn't right for him. Alexander was not a good project for him. I don't know if that was a good project for anybody. But I think more often than not, he picks movies that he can add something interesting to. He just doesn't always pick the ones that are going to be the most notable. I still haven't seen the Total Recall remake. I heard it's not bad, but I heard it's just comparative. Like, just doesn't seem like the right project to pick. Colin Farrell is very capable. So I think, as much as I'm like, Penguin for HBO Max, I'm gonna watch it. I mean, it's not just because I have HBO Max. I will see it as soon as it drops, because, again, I'm more excited for it because of Matt Reeves' involvement as a producer. I am such a huge fan of the 2 Planet of the Apes movies he did. I loved Let Me In. I loved his Cloverfield movie. Matt Reeves wins me over if I'm ever in doubt. So with Matt Reeves producing, Colin Farrell starring, and also I think executive producing, that's kind of a win for me. I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out. But we won't know more until we see the Batman in March of next year. Are you excited for a Penguin series on HBO Max? Let me know down below your thoughts on this new development. Are you more interested in this than you are for the Gotham PD show that will also be a spinoff? Or is there another character that you feel right now you're more interested in? I'm just curious. We don't know enough about this Batman movie to say one way or the other, but what would you like to see in a Batman spinoff for HBO Max? Let me know down below your thoughts on that. Okay, so moving on, the episode's going to be a little bit shorter today just because I am trying to put together pieces and get the thing up and going again. So let's just talk about things that I watched recently. I have watched a good number of movies recently, but here's the ones I kind of want to talk about that I feel like most pressing for me. I finally watched Love Actually last week. Man, I really thought that movie was going to be for me. I really did. I was very excited to finally watch Love Actually, and then I found out it's like almost 2.5 hours long. It's like 2:15, I think, is the total runtime. And the thing is, I didn't know 100% that it was going to be in like an anthology or kind of like a melding of a bunch of different stories, people interweaving throughout each other's lives. The interweaving felt very unimportant, the fact that these characters knew each other, because many of them didn't interact in each other's stories very often. And the problem with this movie is that I like maybe half the stories. Like, it feels like, and like is a flimsy word here. I really liked a couple. I liked some of them. And then there's others that I just did not connect to. The Alan Rickman story, man, I thought that should have been a winner, and that just did not work for me at all. The Andrew Lincoln story with the cards, that's iconic. It's okay. It's not bad. But at the same time, I don't really like anyone in that story because it doesn't feel right to me what's going on. Like, why am I rooting for these characters? I like the Liam Neeson story where he's teaching his kid about love. I thought that was pretty cute. I really like, my favorite story is the Martin Freeman one, where Martin Freeman is playing what do they call those people that stand-ins? He's playing a stand-in in some sort of sex film, and he's like naked the whole time with another actress who's a stand-in, and she's naked all the time, and they're like having this really cute little love story in the middle of just being naked the whole movie. I thought that was pretty funny. But the rest of the movie for me, like, very hit or miss. And that's a problem when you're clocking in for like 220. That's a real tough time to spend. I also watched Batman Soul of the Dragon recently, which is a 70s set Batman tale. What if Batman existed in the 70s alongside like a group of martial artists? And it's a pretty cool little movie. It's a little... At the end, it kind of suffers from that classic superhero problem of like we have big explosion fight thing that just didn't feel like it had a lot of stakes. But overall, the style of Soul of the Dragon was really cool. I liked the way it played with the Batman mythology. It's a nice little movie. I'm happy we got it in an animated form as a little side story because it doesn't need... I mean, there's no reason you would have to have this as a feature, a live action of any kind, but I like the little feature animation thing. DC's animated stuff is really good, and not enough people are checking that out. I also watched Clifford the Big Red Dog. What can you say about Clifford the Big Red Dog? To me, it's as if the people in charge of writing and directing were like, what do we know about Clifford the Big Red Dog? We know he's a dog. We know he's big. We know he's red. To be fair, Clifford is not like a massive IP in terms of story and, elements to it there. It's a big red dog and he gets in shenanigans. But man, this movie just did not work for me. I didn't like the dog. I didn't like the dog in the dog movie. There's no central, I relate this film to other movies that have this kind of boy meets dog kind of a thing. And I think Emily Elizabeth is a character from the books who collects Clifford and raises him, and that's neat and everything. But I also think... So we've had a run of these movies, A Dog's Purpose, A Dog's Way Home, A Dog's Journey, and there's another unrelated film to that called The Art of Racing in the Rain. All four of those movies feature the dog speaking through inner monologue. Why didn't they do that with Clifford? Because the dog has no personality, and it's weird for me to say that, but it would have been an easier way to infuse some personality in the dog, is give it an internal monologue. Because they didn't write any scenes that show the dog bonding with Emily Elizabeth or her uncle. I can't remember his name. And he's bad. He's so bad in the movie. I've been very unimpressed with the actor that plays her uncle. He was also in Jungle Cruise, and I think he's probably the worst part of that movie too. He's just kind of... I don't think he's inherently a bad actor, but these two roles are just not good roles, and he doesn't know what to do with them. I'm sorry to say. Clifford the Big Red Dog is a big red pile of crap. There's only one Clifford movie that you need, and it's Clifford starring Martin Short. That's the Clifford we need, and the Clifford we deserve. But my recommendation for this week is a little-known film called Rashomon. And no, it's probably not that little-known. It's Akira Kurosawa. It's one of his earlier films. Rashomon is so iconic that it literally has a storytelling effect that is still being used, and this technique is still being... It is named after Rashomon. The Rashomon technique is a way of telling a story from multiple points of view. Basically, we have a dead man found in a clearing, and we've got a number of people that were involved there, and they're each telling their version of events as to what happened and why the man is dead. It's an 88-minute movie, I think, and it just cruises. And I like this style of going back and trying to analyze where we are from different perspectives. Most recently, The Last Duel just did this. That new Ridley Scott film just had a Rashomon-style storytelling technique. Vantage Point was pretty famous for doing kind of a similar. It's a smaller because there's more characters in that version, but a version of we learn more as we see it through other characters' vantage points, which is very, very cool, I think. It's a neat idea. It's tough to pull off because you are just telling the same story 5 times. But if you can do it, and you can do it well, it is really effective. It also probably has one of the best Simpsons jokes ever, which is, in Simpsons, there is a whole part where Homer and Marge are on a plane, and he's upset about something I can't recall. And she's trying to convince him to be happy. Are they flying? I don't know. But she goes, "You liked Rashomon?" And he goes, "That's not how I remember it." It's a great joke that not many people get. First time I heard it, I didn't get it either. But now that I've seen the movie, I've seen the joke again, and wow, that really works. That's my recommendation. I don't have a lot of Akira Kurosawa time in my background. That's, I think, the 4th Kurosawa film I've seen. I've seen Yojimbo, Sanjuro, and the first film I saw of his was Kagemusha, which I really, really like. That is a great movie, Kagemusha. But that's not what we're recommending. We're recommending Rashomon, which I think is actually a pretty good entry point to Kurosawa because it's simple. There's not a ton of characters. It's not a long movie. Like Seven Samurai, I feel can be a movie. I watched the first hour of it once, and I turned it off, not disliking it, but just being busy with something. And I was like, I'll come back later and finish it. And I just never got around to finishing it. I need to watch that movie all the way through because it was great so far. But I also think to myself, it's a 3.5-hour movie, and I think trying to convince general audiences to watch a 3.5-hour movie is a tough sell. This is a less than 90-minute movie, so I think Rashomon is a good entry point if you are not familiar with Kurosawa. But then again, I've only seen 4 of his movies, so what do I know, right? That's all I've got for you today, folks. While you're hanging out at the show with us, I hope you had a chance to like, comment on the various stories that you've heard today. And don't forget, too, to subscribe. It's a simple act that can make sure that you never miss an episode of the show, and it also helps me out in growing the channel, which is what's very important to me. I like having this channel, engaging with you online, and being able to grow the channel and do more stuff. If you go over there right now, you can check out Kyle and Nick on Film. The link's down in the description. We have new episodes of that show Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. I think most recently we did episodes on things to do in Denver when you're dead. We did Playing God. What else have we done? We have done Body Heat and Dark City. Yeah, so we've got a number of new episodes on that show. Mondays and Thursdays is the main show, and you can also check out Scary Movie Saturdays on Saturdays with a genre picture every week. You can also check out goatfilmreviews.com for my over 1,000 film reviews. You can follow Goat Film Reviews on Goat Film Reviews on Facebook. You can also follow myself on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Almighty Goatman for all my various musings. Those are my personal accounts, so they're not always going to be film-based, but I talk about movies a lot, so there you have it. Once again, thank you guys for joining me, and until next time, we'll see you.